We had a ton of upsets in primetime, including Monday Night Football. We had potentially the game of the year between Tampa and Seattle. Let's kick it off with the Denver and Philly game. 5 weeks into their season, and the Denver Broncos finally got that signature win. Bo Nix played well, throwing for 242 yards with a touchdown. And looking at that Broncos offense, they really start to click in the second half. In particular, that fourth quarter, they had 2 touchdown drives along with the field goal drive, which would extend their lead late in the game. Let me give some love to Sean Payton in that offense, because coming into the year, I didn't think they were really going to be a top 10 unit. I thought at best they would be in the middle of the pack. And so far, that's been kind of true. We saw that be a problem for them in the beginning of the year, and then in crucial games against the Colts and the Chargers, their offense came up short in a couple of moments. But going up against the Super Bowl champs, Bo Nix in the offense, they had it going. They finally connected on those throws down the field. And that was really the difference maker in allowing the Broncos to win this game. Credit to Sean Payton as well, going for 2 there, because if you don't convert on that, that could easily take away all your momentum. But he trusted his squad, and it paid off. And that dub would not have been possible if it wasn't for that Broncos defense. They got after Jalen Hurts. They stopped Saquon in the run game. And speaking of the Eagles, their offensive struggles continue. Jalen Hurts in that passing game were not great yet again. They couldn't get Saquon going. He only finished with 6 carries for about 30, 40 yards. So it was all on Jalen Hurts and his arm to get the dub. He ended up getting sacked 6 times in this game. And then most of their drives, especially in the second half, would get killed by either a holding penalty or a pre-snap penalty. Jalen Hurts finished the game with 38 pass attempts. That's not going to get the job done if you're the Eagles. We know the Eagles want to run the football, milk the clock a little bit, and then when necessary, have Jalen Hurts win the game with a good throw down the field. We have to start asking ourselves about the Philadelphia Eagles. Will they be able to repeat as champions if they can't figure out their offensive struggles? And the answer right now is no. You have an offensive coordinator that's struggling to incorporate the passing game to complement the run game. And then going back to the run game, they really haven't been efficient on the ground. Teams are not going to allow Saquon to beat them once again. So to wrap up this game, congratulations should go to the Denver Broncos. This was a huge win for them, and it shows that they can be a serious contender in the AFC. It just depends on whether or not that offense can be consistent like they were in the second half, and in particular, that fourth quarter. Next, I'll dive into Monday Night Football, where the Jags, surprisingly, they stunned the Kansas City Chiefs. I did not really think Jacksonville would be this good this year. Trevor Lawrence, to me, was coming into a prove-it year, and the only players I was looking forward to watching from the Jacksonville Jaguars were Brian Thomas Jr. and Travis Hunter. Both of them have been a bit lackluster, and I blame that a little bit on the inconsistency of Trevor Lawrence. That being said, Trevor was pretty good in this game. He had 2 turnovers. The fumble at the goal line, I think he has to be a little bit smarter in that situation. That interception, I don't really put on him. The refs missed a defensive PI. For the most part, he put this team in a position to win. Now, was it pretty? No. That stumble into the touchdown, only few quarterbacks can make that work, but because he has that dual threat ability, he was able to recover, and he won the game, and on his birthday, no less. Happy belated birthday, Trevor. I think that defense is legit. They're very opportunistic. They lead the league in takeaways. As long as Trevor can be consistent, he doesn't turn the ball over, this Jacksonville team could be very dangerous in the AFC. Moving to KC, this is why I was skeptical to say that they were back, because their 2 wins on the year have come against the New York Giants, led by Russell Wilson, and the Baltimore Ravens, a game in which they lost a ton of their defensive stars, and they're one of the worst defenses in the league right now. And I'm not going to say that KC is in danger of missing the postseason, but they have a ton of flaws. The kicking game has taken a step back. Offensively, the struggles in the red zone are continuing to be a problem. We saw it with that pick 6. When they've gone up against the better teams, they have not been able to come out on top. Last year, they won a ton of one-score games, and we're seeing this season is the complete opposite. They're on the other end of those one-score games, and it's going to continue to be hard to win these one-score games if they keep beating themselves. That can't happen moving forward if KC is legit about wanting to go for another championship. Let's get to the game of the week, potentially game of the year, as Tampa outduels the Seattle Seahawks in Seattle. This game almost had 900 total yards from both teams combined. Baker Mayfield, he might legitimately be in the MVP conversation by the end of the season. He's willing this team to victory almost every single week. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers are a really good squad, and wait till they get a little bit more healthier. They can easily be one of the best teams in the NFC, especially if the Eagles continue to slide offensively. And one of those reasons for why they could be up top of the NFC, Emeka Ibuka. He finished this game with 7 catches for 163 yards and a touchdown, making it where he scored in each of his first 5 games this year. And imagine this offense with Chris Godwin Jr. when he gets closer to the form he was at last year, Mike Evans when he comes back. This team is going to be dangerous. Baker finishes this game with 379 passing yards, 2 touchdowns. Keep in mind, they didn't have Bucky Irving, but they were still able to run the football efficiently. Rashard White, he's no scrub. And getting to Seattle, I'm kind of proud of my team. I thought they showed a lot of fight. What made them unable to win this game was the turnovers. Bad fumble with Jalen Milroe and Kenneth Walker. And then unfortunately, Sam Darnold potentially is about to throw the game-winning touchdown. It goes off the side of a Tampa Bay helmet, and the rest is history. JSN, he finished this game with 8 receptions, 132 receiving yards, and a touchdown. The more our offense plays together, I feel a little bit more confident in this unit. The offensive line is playing out of their minds right now. I think this is the best that they played in a while. And then defensively, they're coming off of a bad week. I didn't think this defense was going to give up 38. Injuries are low-key creeping up on this unit. Hopefully they can overcome that. And before we get into Sunday Night Football, I'm just going to quickly recap the rest of the games. We'll start off with Thursday Night Football. Very gutted that the Rams lost that game. And I'm not upset that we went for it on 4th down in overtime, because fuck playing to tie the game. Let's play to win. Now, the play calling could have been better. Sean McVay afterwards admitted that. It sucks being 3-2. I feel like arguably we should be at the bare minimum 4-1. They're going to bounce back from this, and they have a great matchup going up against the Baltimore Ravens. Moving to London, we saw Dylan Gabriel make his debut as the starting quarterback for the Cleveland Browns. Although it came in a losing effort, he looked pretty good. He finished with 190 passing yards with 2 touchdowns. And then on the other side, Minnesota got a huge win to finish one game above 500 going into their bye week. And Baltimore, the Texans put belt to ass on the Ravens. That Baltimore offense barely finished the day over 200 yards of total offense. They finished with 3 turnovers and 9 penalties. That's not going to get the job done, even if you have Lamar playing. Meanwhile, defensively, we know the Ravens aren't good. And when you take away Kyle Hamilton, Marlon Humphrey, Roquan Smith, it's going to be wraps. And let's go down to the Big Easy. Shout out to the New Orleans Saints. I said they weren't going to win a game this year. They proved me wrong. Credit to that defense. They have 5 takeaways, and we'll see if the Saints can continue that momentum. Switching gears to the Big Apple, we saw the Cowboys absolutely blast the New York Jets. And my biggest worry 5 games in is that Aaron Glenn is going to be the scapegoat. I understand that, yes, your team shouldn't be having all these penalties, but when you look at the Jets, this is bigger than a coaching problem. This is an organization problem. I just hope that Aaron Glenn gets a little bit more time, like some other coaches. But with him being a brother, I feel like he will be the scapegoat, and I wouldn't be surprised if we hear conversations and some rumblings about whether or not he survives the rest of the season as a coach of the New York Jets. In Indianapolis, the Raiders got embarrassed yet again. Let me know if I'm too early on this, but should we be having conversations about a new starting quarterback in Las Vegas? And then for Indy, Indiana Jones continues to be excellent. JT had a hat trick. The only devastating news coming out of this game is that they're losing their kicker. Call it a comeback in Carolina as the Panthers storm back against the Miami Dolphins. The main story coming out of this game, Rico Dowdle doodling all over that Miami Dolphins defense. He had a field day going for over 200 rushing yards with a touchdown, and he has another good matchup going up against the Cowboys if you're looking for someone in fantasy. Let's go to the desert where the Arizona Cardinals lose by another field goal. DeMarcado, you have one job. Don't celebrate too early. That essentially gave the Titans a breath of life, because if you get that touchdown, it's 28-6. Instead, the score remains 21-6. The Titans go down and score. And then we had another crazy play where Cam Ward throws an interception. The Cardinals player, he tries to run it back. He fumbles the ball. Somehow the ball gets kicked to the end zone where Tyler Lockett recovers it, and it's a touchdown for the Titans. That play right there was a huge momentum switch, as the Cardinals didn't have an answer for that. And credit to the Titans, a team I said could win a game this year. They finally did it. as they won at the buzzer to defeat the Arizona Cardinals. And now let's go back to LA, where Jaden Daniels, Washington Commanders, steamroll past my LA Chargers. I'm not gonna lie, I don't think the Chargers can have nice things. Offensive line in shambles. Amari Hampton in a walking boot now is on IR. I don't know if the Chargers are going to be able to remain atop of the AFC West, but what I do know is that Justin Herbert needs to play at an MVP level, much like how he did the first 3 weeks of the season. Let's go to the Lions-Bengals game, a game where we expected Detroit to handle business. And credit to them, this is their 4th straight win. And in those 4 games, they've been able to score over 30 points. Something to monitor for the Detroit Lions. Dealing with a ton of injuries in that secondary. Going up against KC, an offense that has been better with Xavier Worthy in the rotation. Let's see if they're able to get healthy or add some more pieces. And move into the Cincinnati Bengals. Another loss without Joe Burrow. Another multi-turnover game from Jake Browning. No shock since he traded for a quarterback. Now, they traded for Joe Flacco. Joe Flacco, don't get me wrong, is a great leader, and I think he will be able to get Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, all those skill position players involved. But one of the big problems right now is that offensive line. And Flacco, he's no sprung chicken. He's not really going to be mobile back there in the pocket. So this offensive line is going to have to step up. I think ultimately it will come down to the play calling and making sure you put everybody, including Flacco, in a position to succeed. And to wrap up my review, let's get into the Buffalo Bills getting upset at home in primetime against the New England Patriots. Let me start off by saying this. Stephon Diggs. Stephon Diggs is still a wide receiver 1. Diggs finished with 146 receiving yards on 10 receptions. Drake May, he looked really good. And I know the numbers don't really tell the story, but his ability to not turn the ball over and to put his team in position to win the game, respect to that young man. I don't think the Patriots, after this win, are going to be like a team we need to watch out for and we can see them in the postseason. But similar to Caleb Williams, these are the signs you want to see from a quarterback drafted so high. And the potential is there for Drake May to be the next winning quarterback in New England. For Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills, this was not their best performance. 3 turnovers on the night, some really bad penalties in the first half, and that was really what made this game in reach for the New England Patriots to pull off the upset. There's not much I can say about the Buffalo Bills after this loss. I think they just didn't play their best game. And going up against the Atlanta Falcons, I'm expecting Buffalo to have a strong bounce back. Credit to the New England Patriots. This is a big time win for them. In Vrabel's first season as a head coach in New England, this is going to go a long way. And although I think Buffalo will still win that division, long term, I think this shows that the gap is slowly starting to close between the Buffalo Bills and the New England Patriots. That's going to wrap up the video. If you stuck to the end, much love as always. Make sure you leave a like, comment down below your thoughts for week 5. Most importantly, hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you all in the next one.